Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we put our mining module, our replacement mining module, in orbit around Eve, and now we need to look to bring that down. So we're just going to do a retrograde burn somewhere around here, aiming for about 75 kilometers as our periapsis. This is, I think, too early because the planet is going to orbit underneath us, so we're going to need it to be somewhere more along the lines of here, I think. Let's go ahead and give that a go and see what happens. We're just going to YOLO this. It's going to be a 4-second burn, and we're going to want to orient for that, of course. So at T-minus 2 seconds, and then we'll save the remaining fuel. I do want to check our staging here. Yeah, this looks good, actually. Our staging looks good for re-entry. Perfect. So we are going to fire this at T-minus 2 seconds. Let's go ahead and warp towards that. Came out of that warp a little early. Better early than late, though. Okay, let's burn this now. I'm watching our periapsis height here, and I just want to burn this a little bit more down to 75 kilometers. That'll do. Now we want to go to surface retrograde, and we are simply going to warp around until we are in the atmosphere. So we're going to do an auto warp here, and that will break us out the moment we enter Atmo. And we'll just reorient. Should be fine at this height of the atmosphere. And then we're going to have 1,247 meters per second that we can burn. So we'll just keep an eye on our time to periapsis here, and 85 seconds is our burn time. Okay, so T-minus 45.5 seconds. Now, that time to periapsis is going to continue to increase. So let's just go ahead and physics warp here until we start seeing some heating effects. And we're definitely going to want to burn this, but we'll keep an eye on that in a moment as we are continuing to descend through this atmosphere. We're not coming back. This is a one and done. But we're going to try to control this as much as possible. It's not going to be hugely possible, if I'm honest. We're going to do our best. Still no heating effects, and that's okay. Our apoapsis is still dropping. Time to periapsis is about 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So we're going to continue this physics warp for now. Oh, I'm starting to see some effects here. So I'm dropping the physics warp. We are now seeing heating effects. We have about a minute on our burn here in theory. We definitely want to slow this down, but I want it to be around that periapsis. That's about where I want this to be. So here in just a little while. I'm honestly surprised that this antenna hasn't already burned off, but we don't need it anymore. So that's completely fine if it does decide to burn off. So let's just go ahead and hold this attitude here. And we're going to burn this. Well, it's going to be a little longer because we're slowing down, but technically, are we still speeding up? Yeah, we're still speeding up technically. But we want to burn this at 42.5 seconds. So I'm just watching for that. Yeah, this is still looking good. Just eyeballing it. 42.5 is our goal here. So let's burn this right about now. Now, that's going to change our time to periapsis pretty dramatically. At this point, I'm going to be watching our trajectory. So far, this is looking fine. Yeah, this is looking good. We actually have a lot of delta V to make this work. Perhaps too much delta V. We might have to delay the second half of this burn. Well, we're seeing this movement slow, for sure. We've lost our heating effects. That is actually good. Let's continue this braking burn for now. I kind of want to burn off all speed here, and then jettison this engine and get our heat shield extended. I think that'll be fine. We know that this is basically at the outer border of where we want to land. So, I mean, we don't necessarily know where it is up here, right? We're going to have to move towards this any way we slice it because I didn't do an inclination change, but that's okay. So we're going to continue this burn off for another 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Jettison that. Inflate our heat shield. That should cause us to separate pretty dramatically here. Okay. And we're going to decelerate quite a lot here, too. I don't think we can I don't think we can deflate our heat shield. That's a weird way to say that. But at this point, we don't necessarily mind tumbling. We should be aerodynamically stable. Or approximately aerodynamically stable. Impact biome of Western Sea. I sure hope that changes. Shallows. Oh, that was our engine blowing up. That was a ways away at this point. Midlands? Okay, we're good. We're going to be landing in Highlands. We are going to have a bit of a journey ahead of us. There's no doubt about that. SAS can go off at this point. I'm going to keep the fairing for now. Okay. I think we're going to need the SAS on. I don't want this to continue that shimmy. That shimmy is very nasty. I'm deploying our drogue chutes to try to stop it. Okay. That is very, very nasty. Let's deploy the main as well. They're not going to provide enough force at this point. We cannot physics warp. We cannot release this until this shimmy is under control. And it's going to be the parachutes that get it under control. Man, that's nasty. But I think it's losing speed here. Yeah, it's losing speed. Good. Okay. We're quasi-stable here. Our antenna was just broken by aero forces because of this. Which doesn't seem very realistic, does it? What is this way out here? This tumble is pretty bad. There's no doubt about it. We should be able to repair the antenna. But that's going to be quite a journey. Quite a journey indeed. I wish we could safely eject the heat shield. Because that's what's causing the issue at this point. The heat shield is not helping. What happens if we just jettison it? SAS off. Let it settle. We need that antenna. That said, we do have a built-in antenna. We're not currently connected, which is a problem. I want to let this settle. To that end, I'm going to crank the altitude on these. What's our radar altitude? Okay, we've got a ways to fall. I mean, we're on target, but this tumble is very exciting. It gets under control for a little while, and then it picks up again. It looks like it also broke our solar panels, but those should be repairable. Once again, though, that's going to be quite a journey for our poor Kerbal. Our backup solar panels appear to be fine. I think. I'd be able to know if this tumble would, you know, cease for a moment. Oh, boy. Thing is, jettisoning the heat shield is always super dangerous until you're more under control. Because this thing, if it impacts the rover, as we saw last episode, it'll just destroy it. So we're just going to bring this on down and see about landing it on the surface. We do have a built-in antenna on this, and it's possible that that'll be good enough once we get to the surface. We're showing as not connected right now, and I'm intrigued by that. I feel like we maybe should be, because we're not that far away from anything else. That said, we may not have a communications satellite in LOS, but this one should be. That is quite a ways away. Well, we'll just let this tumble until the parachutes take over. And once the parachutes take over, then we'll jettison this. Now, everything that was damaged by the aero forces here should be fully repairable, I believe. And if they're not, we can do without them. Not efficiently, but we can do without them. So we've got about another 4 kilometers to fall here. Man, those tumbles are wacky, aren't they? Just absolutely wacky. I don't necessarily want to drain all of our electric charge. I need to keep an eye on that. But I'm going to see if we can maybe tone those down with the SAS. That would sure be nice. I feel like jettisoning this earlier would have been better. Perhaps jettison this before we get rid of the fairing. But that's also kind of risky. Of course, this is risky too, right? Because of things like this. Fantastic. Our parachutes are going to deploy in just 2 kilometers. That's the thing here. We are hoping that our parachutes give us enough attitude control here. That's the goal. And how far away are we actually here from the ascent module? We're a ways away, there's no doubt about that, but how far is this really? I don't know. Man, these tumbles are wacky, though. So if we set this as our target, we can actually see we're about 60 kilometers away. So that's not unmanageable. It'll take a while to get there. But we can definitely do that. We're in the correct biome, so that is perfectly fine. I do think that I'm going to change our descent profile a little bit for our next landings. There go our parachutes. Okay. So let's let this arrest the momentum. Jettison that heat shield. Okay. Now we're safe. Now we need to deploy this. There we go. Were our tires broken? Surprisingly, no. Let's do a bit of a damage assessment. So, our Gigantors were broken, but are repairable. Our antenna was broken, but is repairable. This thermal control system was broken, but is repairable. This photovoltaic panel, broken, but should be repairable. This photovoltaic panel was not broken, nor were any of our backups on the craft itself. Nothing here is unrecoverable, but we are definitely going to need repairs. There is no doubt about that. Okay. I'm going to quick save here, and we're going to attempt to physics warp down to the ground. We'll see how that goes. Now, it's going to be a little interesting for sure. Impacting at apparently 8 meters per second, but we're still a ways off the ground here, and the atmosphere will thicken up as we go down. So we should drop off that speed a little bit. What direction is our Target? Oh, that was just something impacting the ground. That wasn't us. What direction is our target? I mean, we still need to have that as our target, but it is. So, which direction is that? Ah, over here. Yeah, we can see we're about 65 kilometers away, and honestly, that's better than I expected. Now, I wasn't necessarily expecting to have all that tumbling happening, and that ended up meaning that we lost our Communitron, which does hurt pretty badly, actually. So that was some of our additional chutes deploying. That was our drogues deploying. We're about 2 kilometers above the surface right now, and we are moving on down at about 8 meters per second. Which I believe this is considered an acceptable... Actually want this to be attempting to get to retrograde. I think this is an acceptable speed for these wheels. I guess we'll find out on that front. We are about 1 kilometer above the surface, and this is going to be a long drift phase. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, there were definitely things that happened here that are going to need to change. Absolutely. But once we get some repairs out here, it should be okay. Unfortunately, there's no seat on here, so the Kerbal that repairs this is actually going to have to be walked back, or driven out here with the science rover, perhaps. That might be something that we can do. I'll have to think about how I want to do that. Let's go ahead and stop this physics warp. We're going to hit the ground momentarily. We're moving at about 7.5 meters per second. I was hoping that we'd be moving a little slower here, but it's okay. I think we'll be fine at this speed. Yes. Our wheels did not break. Brake action group on. And of course, we have no control here because we have no data. Our built-in antenna here is hibernation off, off, on. Okay, let's turn hibernation on here and here. As far as this one goes, also on. And the antenna is idle. Antenna rating is only 5K. So we can see here we need to head over that way, about 64 kilometers. So that's going to be quite a journey. And I'll have to figure out how exactly I want to do that without an antenna. That's going to be interesting. We definitely want to extend this solar panel, which is something that we surprisingly can do. These up here are, of course, all broken. But that means that we do have enough power that power isn't an issue here. We just need comms. And how do we want to handle comms? Well, now, that's a question. As far as walking a Kerbal, 64 kilometers, that is going to take a very long time. I was definitely counting on this antenna not breaking on the way down. The other thing we could do is just let it fall with the fairing on for longer and not try to get that tumble under control until we were much lower in the atmosphere, and then deploy the parachute so there's less time for the tumble. I don't necessarily like that option either. Maybe once the parachutes are deployable, then we try to jettison the heat shield for future landings. I don't know. We'll have to think about that one. As far as the actual antenna here goes, I'm not sure why we don't have a connection here. I think it's just to do with distance. Our probe launcher, if we switch to that, do we have a relay antenna on this? I don't think we do. Yeah, that's just this guy. And we have no probe launcher, or no relay antenna on this, so that makes sense. We could definitely attempt to move a comsat in closer. How much fuel do we have on this comsat? We could do that and try to utilize this as our relay antenna. This is the one that's in plane with Gilly. Do we have another comsat in here? We do. It's way out there in a polar orbit. That's not going to be useful for us. Let's just see about bringing this in to something along the lines of this. Just bring this into like 100 kilometers. This is something we could definitely do. And from there, we may have at least brief periods of time where we have communications. So that's going to be a retrograde burn. And let's go ahead and warp to that. Excellent. And we're going to burn this at T-minus 22 seconds, so we'll warp to that. So this way our backup antennas should be able to do the trick without us having to make multiple trips out there, which would just be annoying. So we'll burn this on in, and that'll be fine. We are going to need to, of course, get our deployable and our Charlie module in. But we've learned a few things about how to do that from this landing and how not to do it. So that is fantastic. It should be absolutely fine. We're just going to bring this periapsis height down to 100 kilometers here. Should be absolutely no problem here. Okay, another 500, or we're at 500. 300. Let's just bring that on down ever so gently. Good. That'll do. Next, at this periapsis, we are going to go ahead and bring that down as well, and just try to circularize this. That's a little more than we need, so something kind of like that. Okay, let's warp to it. Here we come! And this means that we'll have periods of connectivity, I believe. I believe we'll have periods of connectivity. We should grab our temperature scan and transmit that. We should also grab our magnetometer report. And we'll transmit that as well. Not enough power. Yeah, we're allowing partial. That's fine. Our power generation here is moderate. But that's okay. So we're going to begin our burn here at T-minus, let's see here, 37 seconds. So we will go ahead and warp towards that while we are continuing this transmission. Does this have an alternator on it? I don't think so. But we need to burn now. Oh, right. We're not going to have SAS for this. And this is very sensitive. Very, very sensitive. Okay. This is bad. This is very bad. This is very, very bad. We just entered the shadow, and we have no power. This is just going to continue until we run out of fuel. We have no way to cut the throttle. Because we're out of power. I mean, it's my own fault. It is absolutely my own fault. The good news is we're not going to enter the atmosphere. The bad news is this is just going to continue. For another 54 seconds. And this is going to be stuck in this orbit. I should have thought of this. I absolutely should have thought of this. This is 100% my own fault. I wonder if this is going to blow up. It's going increasingly quickly, and this is getting hard to look at. There's no doubt about that. I'm going to do this. We only have 15 more seconds here on this burn. For some reason, I was thinking that this engine had an alternator in it, but I checked, and it didn't. 10 seconds. So yeah, this was entirely my own fault. There's no doubt about it. Okay, let's freeze our rotation now that we can. Fantastic. We'll call that good. And we're going to warp around here. And we don't have a choice. We have to call that good. So, I mean, we're going to have some periods of connectivity. So where are we right now? Right now, we are... Okay, we need to get rid of that. This is our current orbit. Sure. So we need to move around to this side. And we won't have that problem anymore. I guess an elliptical orbit isn't the worst. But we can position here-ish and hope that we get a connection over here. So let's switch to this. Fingers crossed. Game is currently a little frozen. Okay, it decided to go back into 4K. That's fine. Oh, yeah, look at that. We have a connection. Perfect. So because we have a connection right now, we need to switch this quick. There we go. That's much better. Because we have a connection now, we need to get rid of this. That means that we can start heading towards our destination. I want to definitely enable steering here and here. While we're moving, I want to do that. And off we go. So we're just going to head off at a fairly low rate of speed. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here. We know that when we don't have a connection, we can toggle the brakes action group, but what we can't do is steer. We're moving very quickly here. I'm going to toggle the brake action group. And I'm going to put a cut in here, and next episode, we should be much, much closer to our landing site. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.